Let's hear this first. I'm excited about this because I don't think you or I have heard this yet.
I haven't.
All morning long and into the early afternoon, Bonte, Joe, Steiny Goo, they're playing this clip. You may have heard it. Jimmie Ward on with Richard Sherman on his podcast. And the whole clip starts, because this is the way sort of Twitter clipped it. The whole thing starts with, yeah, and I think there was some of that with Jimmie too, because I thought he could have suited up in Philadelphia last year. People have done different things with that. Some people are like, yeah, I knew Jimmy G was a little weakling. And I'm like, I want to reserve judgment until I know what were you talking about? There was some of what with Jimmy G too.
Right.
So, shout out Grandy. Lucas, did you have anything to do with it? Okay, Lucas had nothing to do with it. Shout out Grandy.
What's up?
Oh, Lucas, you're here. Anyway, shout out Grandy, because I said, hey, man, can we get what was said prior to viral clip? And he's like, yes, Mark, we can. And here it is.
After the Chiefs game, when I had that bad game, my first game back, I said, let me go to Coach Kyle. Let me look him in the eye and hear from his mouth. Say, hey, man, I don't want to play nickel no more. I want to play safety. He said, oh, you don't want to start? And when he told me that, I said, no. I said, just put me on special teams. I'll ball at special teams. He's like, oh, no, just give it a 48-hour rule. And I was like, okay. I gave it a 40-hour rule. And that's why after that Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when I had to talk to him after the game, it's like, hey, we need you to move the corner. AT's ankle kind of bummed up. I'm like, AT ankle? I said, AT was just running down kickoff. Like, what do you mean AT ankle was bummed up? It's like, bro, pin him at corner. What are you hiding him from? Like, y'all draft him third round to play corner. Like, what you talking about? Like, ankle? Like, I'm out here with a broke hand. You saying his ankle hurt? And he's still on special teams? I looked at him. I was like, and I told him, this is my first time. I said, no. I said, I'm not going to corner, bro. I was like, bro, I had no practice at corner. I said, y'all already did me like this once. And then Miko came and asked me. I was like, Miko, I can't do it. I said, no. And then I heard Coach Kyle from the sideline. I guess we'll just put Aziz at corner. I said, and that's when I snapped. I was like, man, I guess you're going to have to. And then that's why I said that at the Philadelphia game. And that's probably some of the stuff that went down with Jimmie, too. I don't know, man, because I feel like Jimmie could have dressed out. I feel like Jimmie could have dressed out that last game. But, you know how this go. You know how this stuff. I seen your boy shooting a bird when he broke his leg.
Okay, let's
some good background.
Very good background. That brings it into focus for me. Let's also first translate for those of you listening for the first time.
AT is Ambry Thomas.
Ambry Thomas, very good. Miko is D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah. Aziz is Aziz Al-Shire.
And your
Go
boy,
ahead and put him in corner.
And your boy flipping birds at the coach is referring to Earl Thomas.
Okay.
Flipping birds to Pete Carroll back when Richard Sherman played for the Seahawks.
I appreciate the Cliff's notes here with that cut.
That's two boys hanging out with all the nicknames.
Right.
In case anybody didn't know who we were talking about.
Right.
What'd you think? What grabs you there?
What grabs me is that Jimmie Ward and Kyle Shanahan didn't see eye to eye.
Sure.
And he draws the comparison to Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, we know, didn't see eye to eye. So when Jimmie Ward says, I'm not going to corner. You already moved me once. You moved me to safety. I'm playing safety just because AT is not able to go. And he kind of takes a little bit of a veiled shot at AT, like, I got a broken hand and I'm out here playing and Ambry Thomas can't go. Then you know what? Hey, Kyle, put Aziz Al-Shire, who's the third linebacker, put him at corner, which is not going to be what's going to happen. And so that's his way of basically doing kind of a middle finger thing, which is what he then leads into the Jimmy Garoppolo cut that we all played.
Okay.
And he's like, and that's kind of what Jimmy Garoppolo was thinking, because I'm sure Jimmy G is thinking, you already put me on the kiddie field. You already drafted my replacement. You already shuttled me in a certain way. And I was kind of scapegoated for the Super Bowl loss. So if I'm Jimmy G and I'm looking at all of this, and I know that if I'm healthy in March, I'm getting a bag, or if I risk it all in January and maybe I have a setback, I lose out on $67.5 million, forget that.
Okay.
That's what I see.
The money side, I think you're right, and that's maybe for me, that's the only fair thing that he's even saying here. Because he just spent the whole setup going, man, you're asking me to go out of position. And then says, and I think maybe there was some of that with Jimmie. I'm pretty damn confident they weren't asking Jimmie to switch positions.
Right.
Now, the other part he's talking about is playing through injury. So you're asking about, I'm playing with a broken hand. You can't have Ambry Thomas play through an ankle? Well, isn't that a veiled compliment? Ambry Thomas, Jimmie, is not as good as you. And so they are more activated to put Ambry off the field, especially if he's compromised, rather than you, because you're talented enough to play through it and play multiple positions. I also don't think that makes any sense to comp to Jimmie Garoppolo, because essentially what just happened here, and I've heard a lot of people then take this clip, and this is why I hate when things are clipped at the wrong time, because, like, I've heard plenty of people say, oh, this proves that Jimmie, just like what Martellus Bennett said, Jimmie's somebody who won't play through injury.
Right.
That's not what Jimmie Ward was saying at all. He wasn't ripping Jimmie. He was ripping Kyle.
Right.
And all of you who have spent the last 24 hours ripping Jimmie Garoppolo, you're ripping the wrong Jimmie. This is completely out of line by Jimmie Ward. It's completely out of line by Jimmie Ward.
That I disagree with.
For multiple reasons.
He kept it real.
Oh, great. Exactly.
He's keeping it a buck.
Good for him. You know what he's doing? First of all, he's pretending he knows what other guys' injuries are. That is out of line. B, this fan base has just spent the last 6 weeks of our lives holding Chris Paul at arm's length, self-included, because what? Because he wouldn't say, hey, I'm a team guy, use me how you want to use me. And then here's Jimmie Ward doing the exact same thing, and we're going to be like, yeah, Jimmie, tell him. Kyle's a weasel. Kyle's not a weasel. And I could give you players from the ceiling to the floor who will tell you what a straightforward, look you in the eye guy Kyle Shanahan is in that locker room. And Jimmie is literally on an island here, maybe along with Jimmie Garoppolo, who really you're all going to hitch you're going to hitch to that wagon now. As far as who you agree with,
to think that Kyle Shanahan has 100% approval rating in that locker room,
nobody does.
Right?
That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
I'm saying that this is a very rare circumstance. And by the way, even what he's passing along, like, what's wrong with that? Shanahan looked at him and said, "Well, no, we've got someone else at that position, and that's where they're playing. You want to play? This is what's available. If not, you're coming off the bench." I get why Jimmie Ward's ticked about it for financial reasons.
Exactly.
But is he wrong? It was the best defense in football.
Sure. But he's not wrong, but he can have his feelings in terms of how he felt like he was treated by the head coach. And so I'm glad you played the longer version of the cut, because it puts Kyle Shanahan in the crosshairs, not Jimmie Garoppolo. He's basically saying, I can see why Jimmie did what he did.
Exactly.
Because Jimmie Ward did what he did based on the backstory, which was, Jimmie, you're a corner. Now, you're not good enough to be corner, so now we want you to play safety. And then Ambry Thomas gets hurt, and now the thought was, well, now we need you to go back and play corner. And Jimmie Ward's like, no, I'm not playing corner now, and I've been playing safety, and I've been doing well at safety. I'm a safety now. You could put Azeez Al-Shaair at corner, which is a hilarious notion to put a linebacker out there in a cover 2 scenario, but I don't fault Jimmie Ward for speaking his mind. He's now a Houston Texans, and he plays for DeMeco Ryans, and so he even referred to Miko in that, as well as DeMeco Ryans, his defensive coordinator at the time. And I'm sure he's not alone in terms of pro football. And if you're the head coach and you look at an injury and you look at a situation, you're not really thinking about, well, Jimmie, I know your backstory is you kind of got replaced as a corner and I forced you to play safety, and now I'm going with my hat in my hand to get you to go back to corner. You're thinking, you play corner and it gives us the best chance to win. And Jimmie Garoppolo, you dress and you be healthy just in case, and that gives us the best chance to win.
Listen, to me, yes, Jimmie Ward can have his feelings. And of course, he's not the only one who's had a bad experience with Kyle Shanahan. There's no such thing as a boss in life that doesn't have people who are complaining about what they're doing. If you got Trey Lance in a quiet room and asked him about Kyle Shanahan, what do you think he would say? Awesome guy.
Gave me every chance to succeed.
Probably not. Probably not is what I'm thinking. So this is pro football. Sometimes people need to hear something they don't want to hear. People don't like their role. Whatever it is, that's pro sports. Obviously, that's pro sports. So I'm not saying Jimmie Ward can't have his feelings. I'm not offended by that. I think he's completely out of line by talking about other guys' injuries. I mean, over here, Garoppolo, Ambry Thomas, people are catching strays because Jimmie Ward is frustrated with Kyle Shanahan. I'm also ticked off at whoever cut this clip. Not you, Grandy, because you cut the right clip. But whoever put this out of Sherm's podcast on the internet made Jimmy Garoppolo turn into a guy that was like, oh, gosh, you wouldn't play hard for us through injury, when in actuality, Jimmie Ward's ripping Kyle Shanahan. He got nothing to say about Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not what he's saying at all. And listen, I know it's not always fair. And do I think that people need to look out for their own money? Of course they do. But call me old school if you want. I'm in the camp where a head coach is allowed to have opinions about who should play where. I just do.
But also individuals, and in this case, Jimmie Ward and Jimmy Garoppolo, have maybe not an equal right, but they do have a right, especially at that juncture of their career, where they can say, no, I'm not doing that.
Absolutely.
And if you're Jimmy Garoppolo
and go play for Houston,
and you're looking at a rehab that has you between 64 and 82% healthy, you're not 100%. And we all know that. So if you're Jimmy Garoppolo and you're looking at a situation where, geez, if I play and I get hurt, it might cost me a chance to go out and get a job, and I'm stuck on a team where the only reason why I'm on this team is because they didn't have another option. They drafted a guy to replace me who turned out to not be the guy, and he got hurt, and then the backup was me, and I got hurt, and the third stringer is this Mr. Irrelevant guy, and now I'm going to back up Mr. Irrelevant, and I'm going to go out there and risk my own health for Kyle Shanahan, the guy who tried to get rid of me not once but twice. No, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
And I'm fine with that. Look, this is their career. You guys they can absolutely all shape it however you want. And if you want to go play for Houston and Las Vegas, by the way, I don't mean that in like a ha-ha sort of a way. If that's who's paying you the most, go do it. I would have probably done the same thing. Well, like, go take care of yourself. I'm not asking football players or anyone for that matter. I love it when fans are like, yeah, turn down millions of dollars for a shot at a ring.
Sure.
Oh, bleep you. I'm taking care of my family. You know what I mean? So, Jimmy, all the Jimmies. You're all,
all the Jimmies.
You're all fine. You're all fine. You all play for a different team. But I hear nothing in here that makes me think Shanahan did anything out of line. He played his card. Ward played his.
Sure.
Garoppolo played his, and now they're all on different teams.
And if Jimmie Ward wants to rat-a-tat-tat Kyle now that he's on a different team, he has every right to do so. Whether or not you think it's a good look or a bad look is, up to the eye of the beholder. It's kind of what we do now. Athletes are in a spot now where they control the message, which is great. And if he wants to come out and talk about how he felt about the end of his Niner career, and Jimmie Ward is a Niner, this was not the first time that he got shuttled into a certain spot. They were going to get rid of him, and then they kept him, and then now you're a safety, and he wants to be a corner, and now they want him to go back to corner. I'm sure he felt some kind of way to where he took the money to go to the Houston Texans.
Yes, and Ross Stripling wants to start. And so does Sean Mania.
Exactly.
So does Alex Wood.
Exactly.
And they'll probably be on different teams as soon as they possibly can be, unless it costs them $1. You notice Ross Stripling is so mad at being a Giant that he's going to what? Opt in.
He's going to opt in, yeah.
Oh, God. You're not actually mad. You just want money. And that's fine. Who doesn't? I totally get it. The only part that I think that's out of line here from Jimmy is he's talking about other players' bodies and acting like he knows what's going on there.
Yeah,
okay?
I see that. That's shout out HIPAA laws.
Yeah, and if you're mad at Kyle, great, be mad at Kyle. But I didn't hear anything that says the coach was out of line. He coached the team and put the people in who he thought should be in, and proof is in the pudding. They're the best defense in football. Like, that carries weight if your defense underperformed. but they didn't. They were phenomenal defense. So what are you going to do? You should have put me in. Well,
Right.
we were number one. So actually, no, we're going to keep doing exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, but at the same time, a player who is in a spot that maybe he doesn't want to be in, you then have a choice. And you're Stripling and you're Minaya. It's an interesting comp because, if you're Stripling and you don't like the way you're used and you have a player opt, you can opt out.
Opt out.
Or you can opt in and say, well, the manager's gone now, so maybe things will be different in the upcoming year. And if you're Jimmie Ward and you've reached the end of your rope in terms of do they want me to be a safety or a corner and all the rest of it, you go and you follow your DC to Houston, and he got 2 years and $13 million, and he'll be 33 at the end of next year, and that probably will be it for Jimmie Ward.
I got one more thing on this, but let's go to Dave in Sacramento. We promised we get to Dave. Hey, Dave, what's going on? You're on with Willie and Dibby.
What's up, fellas? So this is kind of a carryover conversation from the last segment. Everybody was talking about Christian McCaffrey and how Kyle Shanahan likes to break his toys, and that Christian McCaffrey is 50% of this offense, 50% of the ball touches. And so it just occurred to me, people are worried about Christian getting hurt, which I get. I said, why don't we treat this like the Warriors? I am positive, 100% positive, that we could sit him for 2 games. It would be totally fine because we have thousands of weapons that can cover for him against a couple of lesser teams. You could still pay him to suit him up. Just, I know that he's going to want to play because he's a soldier, but I think you guys get my drift. Because if he gets hurt or Brock gets hurt, we're screwed.
So, Dave, I totally get it. Thank you, Dave. I don't know what you think about that.
Thousands of other weapons.
I tell you what.
How about maybe 2 other weapons? 2.5?
I respectfully disagree with this on many levels, and I know Christian would too. You're asking basically Christian to put, for instance, records that he might be chasing aside.
Or awards like the MVP.
You're asking Christian basically to put his own money aside, his own legacy aside. But secondarily, and maybe actually more importantly, here's one thing, and I love that 49er fans are feeling that confident. That's great. It means they're good. But I hope I never reach that level of overconfidence with my team in the NFL where I think, this Sunday, we got this. And even if we don't, it's okay. No.
Load management in the NFL?
The beauty of the NFL is the every week urgency. I don't care who's on the schedule. It's full bore, all 100% every single time.
Unless you're in a clinched scenario where you're already the number one and this game means nothing, blah, blah, blah. I'm with you. Even if you face, Arizona a second time, and to think like we're gonna load manage McCaffrey, and we're gonna load manage Trent Williams and Ayuk, and we're gonna try to get by with the twos. That's a dangerous game in the NFL where you only have 17 games.
Damn, no joke.